Welcome to the first Active Schools podcast. I'm Pete Young, Active Schools Coordinator in Meldrum, and with me is Lynsey Coutts, Coordinator in Kemney. Today we're going to be talking about volunteering with Active Schools. Volunteering is at the heart of Active Schools programmes, and without our fantastic volunteers, we'd not be able to offer the wide range of sport and physical activity opportunities that are available to children and young people across all areas of Aberdeenshire. I'm delighted today to be discussing this with two of our Active Schools volunteers, Rona and Jack Ross-Thompson, who will be sharing their experiences and journey with us. So to get started, just a sort of general question, if you could tell us a little bit about your volunteer journey with Active Schools, and I'll pass on to Rona to start off with.
Hi, Peter. Hi, Lynsey and Jack. So my volunteer journey with Active Schools was actually, it all happened quite quickly. I was already a yoga teacher teaching adults, and I'd heard so many benefits that young people get from practicing yoga, especially young people who maybe aren't drawn naturally to competitive sport. And I did my, like I say, I was a part-time yoga teacher, actually. I had a proper job. And I went and did a training course with a chap called Michael Chiswick in London, who is he's been teaching kids yoga now for 2 or 3 decades. I think he was one of the sort of pioneers in this country. So I got a good training grounding with him, and I thought, will I volunteer for the local play group? Will I volunteer for the local school? And somebody suggested Active Schools because, there was a formal program there. So I got in touch with Active Schools, and it was a case of, first of all, on the phone call, being made to feel so welcome as hello, I'm a yoga teacher. Would you like to put yoga onto the Active Schools schedule? And the answer was immediately yes. We had a meeting, and my initial class, I think, was an after-school class at Meldrum Academy for primary 1 to 7s. I think we split it into 2. And this was about 5 or 6 years ago. So mental health was starting to come onto everybody's agenda as not something, to deal with in an emergency, but something that we need to work on, almost like, our physical health, or almost even like brushing our teeth in the morning. We need to work on our mental health. And of course, yoga has lots of physical and mental health benefits within it. And so it was a good time to introduce yoga onto the curriculum. And the journey itself, I know we'll probably come on to discuss specifics about what my volunteering journey, but the journey itself has been really natural. It's been hugely supported by Active Schools, and I had a little sort of incline in my mind that I wanted to teach kids yoga, children, young people, and Active Schools has been the perfect vehicle for me to express that wish, if you like.
That's fantastic, Rona. Thanks very much. And Jack, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yours as well.
Yeah, so my background is heavily involved in athletics, and that's kind of spurred me on to the career path that I'm currently on. So for those of you who don't know, if I haven't appeared on anything on the Active Schools pages before, I'm a Year 3 Applied Sports and Exercise Science student at Robert Gordon University. I've previously studied 2 years. I have a higher national diploma in fitness, health and exercise. For me, it all started, I went to Meldrum Academy, and I think my first ever proper volunteering I did was probably, I think the year 2014, 2015, when I was in about second year of school, I got to take part in the Active Schools Young Ambassador programme through Malcolm Grant, who was at the time, he was our Active Schools coordinator in the school. And he offered me the opportunity due to my interest in sport out with and in school, because in first year I kind of found a love for running and athletics. I took part at Ellen Amateur Athletics Club when probably 2012, so I've been doing that for about 10 years now. And then there as well, that was another volunteer opportunity I took on, was training with the club. I'd trained with them for about 2 to 3 years in Ellen, and then I took on a volunteer like assistant coach role alongside my active training and performance. So I was still an athlete, I was still training, still competing, but at the same time I was having that extra responsibility when I was probably about 13, 14 years old to take on like younger kids and take them through their warm-ups, their actual sessions. But as Rona was saying, like the Active Schools guys, like Malcolm was my first link with Active Schools, minus the cross country and things that were being run when I was still in school. And like you say, everyone was really encouraging. Like they try and give you as many opportunities as possible. So I also took part in the Saltire Awards. So I have certificates at home through my time in Ellen that I volunteered for over 100 hours worth of work. So I've got Saltire Awards that I can stick in my CV. I also got put forward for the Aberdeenshire Youth Volunteer Award by my head of PE at the time. And I received that in 2016, which was to do with my volunteering in sport within school and out with, so in my local area as well. And at the moment, I'm on my 6 weeks worth of work placement, and I decided to volunteer with Active Schools and work with a team here. I've been doing little bits and bobs so far, but I'm only in my second week and I'm looking forward to keeping going.
Excellent.
Great. Well, thank you both. It's been really interesting to hear, obviously, what has been involved in your own journeys. And it also shows as well, just that coming into Active Schools as volunteering, you can come from so many different directions and different backgrounds. So if we just kind of take it back to the very start then, and we just kind of want to find out why you wanted to get involved in volunteering. So if we maybe go to Jack first on this one.
So like I said, I think I probably would have started either in Ellen or at Meldrum. But to start off with, in Ellen at my local athletics club, it was a really small club when I joined, and it was at the risk of folding as a club. And I really didn't want that to happen because, you know, it's the first sport I've really enjoyed, because I wasn't really into sport when I was in primary school. Moved up to academy, really fell in love with the sport. And I was like, you know what, I want to keep this going. So then I got offered by members of my coaching team. At the time, there was only two of them at the time, Eddie Graham and Rosie Graham, and they offered me, as well as the committee of the club, offered me to take me on as an assistant coach and train me and take me through all the official Scottish athletics, British athletics, coaching qualifications. So I just grabbed that opportunity with both hands, and I haven't looked back since, to be honest. I've seen it as like an opportunity to both increase my practical knowledge and help train me, as well as be able to further that, being able to pass what I know on to like younger kids who maybe join the club. And again, in my head, it was keeping the club going, it was keeping it flowing, because there wasn't a lot of interest at the time from parents to help out. But now the club's like gone from about like 20 kids when I started to probably roughly 100 now. I'm not sure, I haven't been back in a while due to COVID, but I know that they've got some of the best coaches I've ever had to meet. I can pick their brains anytime I want. Like, they're all amazing. And they've done really well for themselves. They've now got a big club that is no danger of folding whatsoever. I don't think it's done really well for itself. But I also took it as an opportunity to test the waters, whether I wanted to make a career out of it. Because as I said before, I'm a third year uni student. I'm working towards my Bachelor of Science at the moment. And that was a big step in that journey of, I want to see if I can do it as a career and if I like it. And I did like it, and I'm still doing it. Try and do a little bits here and there when I can. But again, through Meldrum, I just seen it as, like, with working with Malcolm and the other Active Schools guys, it was kind of a chance to boost my confidence, because I'd moved from a really small primary school up to Meldrum Academy, and that was at the time like 1,000 pupils, and I'd been in a room with a maximum of 25 when I was in primary school. So it was a massive jump up. I didn't really know anybody, so it was quite, again, just to see if I enjoyed sport and like kind of get me to a place I want to be. But I can definitely say it was worth it, and I've really enjoyed it.
That's great, Jack. Thank you. That was a very, very personal account of obviously why and what made you want to get involved. So, Rona, if we just come to you, what made you want to get involved in volunteering?
I think it was because you know, like I say, I was already this part-time yoga teacher, and I felt that children and young people could really benefit from it. So it's a case of, you know, when you're so enthusiastic about something, you want to share it, particularly with a younger audience. As I've already mentioned, you know, the mental health benefits, the fact that it appeals to youngsters who maybe are not particularly sporty or who don't like competitive games. And also you're sowing a seed to these children and youngsters about this practice of yoga, where you can have a bit of fun, you can have a bit of physical activity, you can maybe settle your mind, and that's great. But you're also giving them ideas for the future. You're sowing seeds of ideas for the future. So when they maybe leave the nest, for example, and go to a different city to university, you know, they might find themselves a little bit lost at sea or a touch homesick. They know that they can go to a yoga class, they can go to a Pilates class. They've done it so many times through active schools that, you know, and that's sometimes as adults just the sort of things that you need to maybe get into a routine in a new city or a, you know, different circumstances. So those were kind of the reasons why I wanted to get involved from sort of the kids' point of view. But in terms of what I was going to get out of it, because you do have to be slightly selfish as well and think, well, you know, I'm giving up my time. What am I going to get out of it? It's really interesting actually listening to Jack saying that he was using it to sort of fathom out whether he could make a career out of it. Now I'm a lot older than Jack. I was kind of in, you know, I was well into a career as a surveyor, and I was getting a bit sort of jaded with that, and yoga was something I did in my spare time. And actually becoming you know, I'd often sort of dreamt, as it were, or fancied the idea of becoming a full-time yoga teacher, but didn't know quite how to make the leap. And as it turned out, volunteering for active schools was probably just the little bit of the jigsaw that I needed to complete a sort of, you know, little, I don't want to use the word portfolio, but a little kind of, you know, a group of classes within my own area, with people that I know, with families that I know. It kind of just fitted nicely into this overall package that meant that I could then give up my proper job, as I keep calling it, and become a full-time yoga teacher. It just sat really nicely with all the other things that I was doing. And so I was, you know, in terms of, you know, could I make a career out of it? I was a bit like Jack in that, but I was at the other end of I was at the sort of at the end of my old career and about to sort of not retrain, but just take something that I love doing and make it a proper vocation. So that was another reason.
That's great. Thanks for that. It's lovely to see and hear about the similarities, but also the differences of what made you both want to get involved in volunteering, which is great. So I think, Rona, you've already kind of touched on it in your previous kind of answers, but if we just kind of go to the process that was involved in getting approaching active schools, how easy was it from making initial contact to actually then being out and volunteering and delivering?
It was so easy, Lynsey. It really was. I mean, I got Malcolm Grant's mobile number and I phoned him, and he was in the middle of organising a game of football. I could hear the kids playing football in the background. And you know how it is when you catch somebody on their mobile phone, you say, oh, now doesn't sound like a great time, you know, especially if you've never met the person. But, you know, he turned his back to the pitch and he had a really engaging conversation with me. The answer was yes. We then met the following week. He outlined how active schools could support me, and I think this is a really important point, because when you go out to teach kids, if you're going out on your own, you have an absolute, raft of paperwork to adhere to. If you were teaching on your own, active schools take care of all of that. They know the legislation inside out. They're up to date with it. So you're in a really safe pair of hands when it comes to being ready to teach. And I think that's the thing that's made this volunteering so easy, is because active schools do all the registers. They're the ones that are contacting the parents, getting the children's details, getting the parental consent to everything that's required, including photographic consent and all the rest of it. Because they do that, you as a volunteer, all you need to do is turn up and teach. It really is that simple. And my process, I think, from that initial phone call that I had with Malcolm, and I don't know what he was trying to do, if he was trying to referee the game or not, I don't know. But from that initial phone call with Malcolm, which was a cold call, never met Malcolm before, to me actually running my first class, I think it all happened within about 3 or 4 weeks. And the other thing is, active schools know that you're a volunteer, so they treat you with the greatest of respect. You're not under a sort of minimum hours that you must complete in a week. You're totally flexible as to what days and times you can do as well, as long as it fits around the school calendar. It's really up to you. And so starting with active schools was quick, but it was also gradual. So it was just a few, I think it was a block of 4 classes that I did, and then we reviewed, and we kept reviewing as well. And it was really, really easy. Yeah.
That's great. Thanks, Rona. So maybe actually on the flip side of that, Jack, you might have a slightly different experience as to how you found the initial process, and obviously how you made that approach to active schools.
Yeah, so mine again goes all the way back to when I was in school. So that would have been about 8 years ago now, 9 years ago, and it was just me discovering a passion for sport and being involved. But as you say, like, the process is so simple. Like, even if you're in school and you're just looking to, like, when I was in school, again, I'll go back to, it's like I'm looking to make a career out of something I enjoy, because I'm expecting to, develop throughout school, go on to university or college or some form of other employment after school, and hopefully progress through that. So I was just taking little bits and bobs and try to find a way that I can kind of turn my hand to something, because obviously I was too young to work, so I couldn't get an actual coaching job. But Malcolm approached me one day when we were in school, like the PE teachers and stuff had selected a couple of people who had been kind of heavily involved in sport within the school, going to like extracurricular stuff such as like the NASA athletics and cross countries, the football, the hockey and things. So me and another one of my peers at the time, we got called into the office, and Malcolm sat us down and was like, right guys, we've got this thing that we're away to do. It's been a program that we've run for a while, and we both said yes, and we got to go along as a pair to the Aberdeen Exhibition Centre, the old one in Bridge of Dawn, and we went to this massive conference filled with heaps of people, the exact same as us, all school pupils from like all over the area. I think the furthest one afield we actually met was a girl from Shetland or something, and she was lovely. But you get to meet all these different people, and their background is completely different in all sports. But through that, it was just straight back to school. It didn't interrupt my studies at all. I was only in like second year at the time, and I started helping out with like inter-house sports, other activities and things that they had running at the time. Obviously with the help of the PE department and older, like senior pupils, but it was good. Another thing was like from the PE staff at Meldrum, they were always amazing at like keeping you involved, keeping you motivated to do things. So they constantly fed me opportunities throughout. So that's kind of driven me to volunteer more, do my coaching and things as well. That could be through like your volunteering opportunities, your SQA courses, or like my competitive stuff like the NASA athletics that I'd competed in every year. In my senior years of school as well, again, kind of linked to active schools, it was just more volunteering, doing the sports captain, house captain roles, just kind of turning my hand again at more like different kind of admin things, organising events and stuff, see if I could do that again after school. It's all like a feeling process for me when I was in school. And then at Ellen, again, it was just really, really easy to get involved because they put me on the courses, they paid for everything. I just had to say like, yes, I'll give it back. Like that was the only thing I had to give back to them, was my knowledge, my understanding, my learning that I'd taken from these courses, and pass it on to like the other coaches or the athletes and stuff like that. So, and the coaches again would always let me pick their brains. So I'm constantly learning. Like I love sitting with somebody and chatting away, like especially if I'm involved in the sport. I love picking the brains of other like air quote professionals. But I'd like to think that they learned little things from me as well, because obviously as a kid I'm looking at things from a different way compared to an adult who's been in coaching for 10, 15 years. But again, for both of them, fully supported by the staff, my coaching team, my peers, and even my parents were a big involvement in me volunteering as well. So it's been quite really easy. And from where I am right now, for my volunteering stuff with university, my placement, again, just a quick email to Malcolm, who's my placement provider, and he just got back to me within like a day. I think it was the same day he replied, and he was like, absolutely, we'll have you on the team, I recognise your name, this, that, next thing, we'll just fire you up, get you 6 weeks done. And I've emailed Pete. This is the first time I've ever met Pete, and me and Pete have been having emails back and forth about volunteering opportunities. So I got to volunteer at football last night, and I'm getting to volunteer at netball tonight. So again, just very simple, just try and grab it with both hands, I suppose. That's all I can say, to be honest.
That's great. And it's really, really nice hearing that, you found the process easy. And it's something, we always talk about with volunteers, that, that volunteering should be as rewarding, hassle-free, and individualized as possible. And we're really keen to make sure that any volunteering we do is very much, as you've mentioned, Rona, tailored to people's own circumstances, their experience, their availability, and it's very much led by the volunteer rather than trying to shoehorn somebody into something. And as well, as you both said, it's not essential to have prior sporting or coaching experience. It can help. But if you've got somebody who's motivated and enthusiastic and willing to learn and willing to share experiences, so that really helps.
It's been great hearing about our volunteers' journeys and the initial process they have both went through to get involved. Thank you for listening to the First Active Schools podcast. Come back and join us for part 2, when we will find out more information about the support our volunteers receive and words of advice to anyone looking to get involved. There is a wide range of other podcasts available via the Live Life at Home.